Deep beneath the ancient stone floor of her family's library, where the air smelled of parchment and the faint scent of cedar wood, Alara's trembling fingers brushed against a crack in the wall. It wasn't just any crack, it was a seam hidden for centuries, and as she pressed against it, the wall gave way with a soft groan. The chamber beyond was small, but it glowed faintly, the walls etched with runes that seemed to hum with a life of their own. The light they emitted was soft, almost melodic, and as Alara stepped closer, she felt it a vibration that seemed to rise from the ground and settle into her chest, steady and warm, like the rhythm of a heartbeat. The runes weren't just symbols, they were alive, whispering secrets in a language she could almost understand. They spoke of power, of nights filled with whispers, and of something older than time itself. But as the hum grew louder, soothing yet insistent, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone in the chamber. Something in the shadows seemed to watch her, waiting. What had she uncovered? And more importantly, was it meant to be found? Tonight, we journey into the mysteries of the ancient runes, where every symbol tells a story, and every whisper holds a secret. Let's explore the world Elara has stumbled into, where the past and the present collide in a dance of light, shadow, and the unknown. As the soft glow of candlelight flickered across the ancient parchment, Alara's focus deepened. Her fingers moved delicately over the runes, each stroke revealing more of their hidden meanings. The air around her seemed to hum faintly, a gentle vibration that resonated with her murmurs as she spoke the runes' names aloud. It was as if the room itself had come alive, responding to her presence. The hum grew louder, wrapping around her like a warm embrace, drawing her into a trance-like state where time seemed to stand still. And then they came, the whispers. At first, they were so faint, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. But as she leaned closer, the voices became clearer, weaving together in a haunting melody. They spoke of a ritual, one that had been lost to time, buried beneath layers of myth and fear. This ritual, they said, held the power to unlock the secrets of the night, to harness its energy in ways few could imagine. Yet, woven into their promises was a warning, a chilling reminder that such power always comes at a price. Alara's heart raced as she sat back, her fingers trembling. The allure of uncovering this ancient knowledge was undeniable, but the whispers had planted a seed of doubt. What if the cost was too great? What if she unleashed something she couldn't control? Her mind raced with possibilities, each more daunting than the last. She knew she couldn't face this alone. With a deep breath, she carefully rolled up the parchment and tucked it into her satchel. Her thoughts turned to Master Thaler, the one person who had always guided her through the complexities of ancient magic. Thaler was wise, patient, and above all, cautious. He had often warned her of the dangers that lay hidden in the shadows of forgotten rituals, but he also understood her thirst for knowledge, her need to uncover the truths that others had left buried. As she made her way through the dimly lit corridors of the ancient library, the whispers lingered in her mind, a constant reminder of the choice she had to make. Would she pursue the ritual, risking everything for the chance to unlock its power? Or would she heed the warnings and turn away from the unknown? The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. She needed Thaler's guidance now more than ever. Master Thaler leaned forward, his weathered hands clasped tightly together, as Alara recounted her discovery. The flicker of candlelight cast deep shadows across his face, and his usual calm demeanor shifted to one of deep concern. "These runes," he began, his voice low and measured, "are not mere artifacts of the past. They are remnants of a powerful and perilous tradition, one that should have remained buried." He explained that the symbols she had uncovered were once used by an ancient order of mystics, known as the Dream Weavers. These mystics believed that dreams and nightmares held untapped power, a force that could shape reality itself. Through their rituals, they sought to harness this energy, weaving it into the fabric of the world to bring peace and harmony. For a time, their work was celebrated, and their influence spread far and wide. But power, Thaler cautioned, always comes at a cost. The Dreamweaver's practices began to attract the attention of darker forces entities that thrived on chaos and fear. These beings infiltrated the order, twisting its purpose and corrupting its members. What was once a path to enlightenment became a source of terror, and the Dreamweaver's once sacred rituals spiraled into madness. In the end, their order was destroyed, their knowledge sealed away, and the runes buried to prevent further calamity. Thaler's voice grew solemn as he urged Elara to seal the chamber and leave the runes untouched. "Some mysteries are best left unsolved," he said, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and regret. "The past has a way of reaching into the present, and not all doors should be opened." But Alara's resolve only hardened. The pull of the runes was undeniable, their whispers echoing in her mind like a distant melody. She couldn't ignore the questions they raised, the secrets they promised to reveal. Though she respected her mentor's wisdom, she knew she couldn't turn away. That night, as the moon cast its pale light over the ancient library, Alara made her decision. She would continue her research in secret, carefully unraveling the threads of the past, even if it meant risking everything. The runes had chosen her, and she would not abandon their call. As the moon casts its pale light through the chamber's ancient cracks, Alara steps into the sacred space once more, her breath steady but her pulse quickening. The air feels heavier tonight, charged with an energy that seems to hum in harmony with the runes etched into the stone. She carefully arranges the components she has gathered: a vial of water kissed by moonlight, a shimmering sprinkle of silver dust, and the jagged shard of obsidian, its surface glinting like a fragment of the night sky. Each item holds a piece of the ritual's power, and as she places them in the formation described by the runes, the chamber seems to awaken around her. Her voice rises in a low, melodic chant, the ancient words flowing from her lips as if they had been waiting centuries to be spoken again. The hum grows louder, a deep, resonant sound that vibrates through the stone floor and into her very bones. It's soothing, almost lulling, yet there's an undercurrent of something else, something ancient and watchful. The runes on the walls begin to glow, their light intensifying with each passing moment, as if they are drawing strength from her voice and the energy in the air. Alara feels a warmth spreading through her, a surge of power that makes her skin tingle and her senses sharpen. But just as the ritual reaches its peak, the whispers return. They are no longer faint murmurs, but urgent, insistent voices that seem to come from all directions at once. They speak in a language she cannot fully understand, yet their tone is unmistakable, a warning sharp and clear. Her heart skips a beat as she realizes she is not alone. The chamber, once a sanctuary, now feels like a trap. Shadows shift at the edges of her vision, and the air grows colder, heavy with the weight of an unseen presence. Elara's breath catches, her mind racing. Who or what has found her here, and what does it want? The runes pulse brighter still, their light almost blinding, as if urging her to finish the ritual. But the whispers grow louder, more frantic, drowning out her voice. She hesitates, torn between the pull of the ancient magic and the instinct to flee. Something is coming, something that has been waiting for this moment just as long as she has. The chamber is no longer hers alone, and the balance of power is shifting with every passing second. The air grew heavier as the shadowy figure stepped closer, its form flickering like a flame caught in a breeze. The hum of the runes seemed to rise in pitch, as if responding to its presence. Elara's heart quickened, but she held her ground, her fingers tightening around the pouch that held the runes. The figure's voice was low and resonant, carrying an otherworldly echo that seemed to reverberate through the very stones beneath her feet. "You tread where you do not belong," it intoned, each word dripping with authority. "The runes are not meant for the hands of the uninitiated. Their power is not a toy to be trifled with." Elara's breath caught in her throat, but she forced herself to speak, her voice steady despite the unease coiling in her chest. "I mean no harm," she began, her words measured. "I seek only to understand, to uncover the truths they guard. I believe they hold answers that could help others, not just myself." Her plea hung in the air, but the shadow's form remained rigid, its glowing eyes narrowing as if sizing her up. "You speak of understanding," the guardian replied, its tone sharp and unyielding. "But do you truly grasp the weight of what you seek? The runes are not mere symbols. They are the threads that bind the fabric of existence. To misuse them is to unravel the very world you seek to protect." The accusation stung, but Alara refused to back down. She had come too far, sacrificed too much, to turn away now. "I may not know all there is to know," she admitted, her voice firmer now, "but I am willing to learn. I am willing to prove myself worthy of their secrets. Please, let me show you that my intentions are pure." The shadow did not respond immediately, its form shimmering as if caught between worlds. For a moment, the hum of the runes softened, and Alara dared to hope. But then the guardian's voice cut through the silence once more, colder this time. "Worth is not earned through words," it said. "It is earned through action. And thus far, your actions have only brought you to the brink of destruction. Leave this place and do not return. The runes are not yours to claim." Elara's jaw tightened, her resolve hardening like steel. She could feel the weight of the guardian's words, but they only fueled her determination. "I cannot leave," she said, her voice unwavering. "Not until I've proven myself. If you will not grant me the chance, then I will find another way. The runes have called to me, and I will not ignore their voice." The tension between them crackled like a storm about to break. The shadow's form seemed to shift, its edges blurring as if it were preparing to act. Elara's mind raced, searching for a way to bridge the divide, to show the guardian that she was not like those who had come before. She knew, deep in her bones, that the runes held a truth that could change everything. and she would not, could not, walk away. The question now was not whether she would succeed, but how. As the ethereal mist of the dream realm swirls around her, Alara feels the weight of the Guardian's challenge settle deep within her. The air is thick with anticipation, and the faint hum of the ancient runes echoes in her ears, a constant reminder of the trial ahead. She hesitates for a moment, her heart pounding as she considers the stakes. Dreams are not just illusions here, they are mirrors, reflecting the rawest parts of the soul. To face them is to confront truths that even the bravest might shy away from. But Alara knows there is no turning back. With a deep breath, she steps forward, allowing the dream to pull her in. The landscape shifts and bends around her, defying logic and reason. One moment, she stands on a vast, shimmering plain where the ground glows like liquid silver. The next, she finds herself in a dense forest where the trees whisper secrets in a language she can almost understand. Each step feels heavier than the last, as though the dream itself is testing her willingness to proceed. Around her, fragments of her past begin to surface. A childhood memory of laughter, a moment of heartbreak she thought she'd buried, and a fleeting glimpse of a future she once dared to imagine. The visions are vivid, almost tangible, and they tug at her emotions in ways she hadn't prepared for. The whispers of the runes grow louder, their voices blending with the echoes of her own thoughts. They guide her, but the path is far from clear. Alara realizes that this trial is not just about facing her fears, it's about understanding them. Each vision holds a lesson, a piece of wisdom she must uncover to move forward. In one moment, she sees herself standing at a crossroads, the weight of a decision she once made pressing down on her. In another, she is surrounded by faces she thought she'd forgotten, their eyes filled with unspoken questions. The dream forces her to confront the choices that shaped her, the regrets that haunt her, and the hopes that still burn within her. As the trial unfolds, Alara's resolve is tested in ways she could never have anticipated. The dreamscape twists and turns, revealing new challenges at every corner. At times, it feels as though the very fabric of the realm is working against her, pushing her to her limits. But through it all, she clings to the whispers of the runes, their ancient wisdom, offering a lifeline in the chaos. She learns to trust not just their guidance, but her own inner strength. The trial is as much about self-discovery as it is about proving her worth. When the final vision fades and the dream begins to dissolve, Alara feels a sense of clarity she hasn't known before. The Guardian's voice cuts through the silence, its tone both approving and cautionary. "You have faced the trial with courage," it says, "but remember, this was only the beginning. The true test lies ahead, and it will demand even more of you." Alara nods, her heart steady despite the warning. She knows the road ahead will not be easy, but she also knows that she is ready. The whispers of the runes fade, leaving her with a quiet confidence as she prepares to take the next step on her journey. As Alara opened her eyes to the waking world, she felt the air shift around her, heavy and charged with an unspoken tension. The village, once alive with the hum of daily life, now lay under a shroud of unease. Shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should, twisting and flickering as though they had a life of their own. In the stillness of the night, whispers carried on the wind voices that spoke in a language no one could understand, yet everyone felt deep within their bones. Dreams, once fleeting and forgettable, now clung to the villagers like second skins, vivid and haunting, leaving them questioning what was real and what was not. The once vibrant marketplace stood eerily quiet, the usual chatter replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to press down on every heart. Alara knew this was no ordinary disturbance. The runes she had awakened in her meditative journey had stirred something far older and more powerful than she had anticipated. The villagers, once her neighbors and friends, now looked at her with fear and suspicion. Their eyes spoke of a question they dared not ask aloud. Had she brought this darkness upon them? Guilt gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside. There was no time for doubt. She had to act, and quickly. With determination burning in her chest, Alara sought out Master Thaler, the reclusive scholar who had once been her mentor. He lived on the outskirts of the village, his home surrounded by ancient tomes and relics of a forgotten age. When she arrived, she found him poring over a crumbling scroll, his face etched with lines of worry. He looked up as she entered, his eyes sharp and knowing. "You've awakened something," he said, his voice low and grave, "something that should have remained buried." Elara nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She explained what she had seen in her meditations, the visions of the ancient order, and the runes that pulsed with a life of their own. Thaler listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. When she finished, he sighed deeply, rubbing his temples as though the very act of thinking pained him. "You've set something in motion, Alara," he said, "and now we must see it through, though I fear the consequences may be greater than either of us can imagine." Together, they began to unravel the tangled threads of history. The ancient order, it seemed, was not merely a group of scholars or mystics. They were guardians, keepers of a balance that had been shattered long ago. The runes were not mere symbols, they were keys, each one unlocking a fragment of a power that could reshape the world. But with that power came danger, for the runes were also a prison that held something far more terrifying. Thaler's warnings echoed in Alara's mind as they worked, a constant reminder of the stakes. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her, but there was no turning back now. The storm was gathering, and she would have to face it head-on. As Alara and Thaler carefully turned the brittle pages of the forgotten tome, a chill ran through the air, as if the very room held its breath. The runes etched into the parchment seemed to shimmer faintly, as though alive with some hidden energy. What they discovered was more than a mere record of power. It was a revelation. These ancient symbols were not just tools for harnessing energy. They were a bridge, a language meant to connect the living with the spirits of the night. The mystics of old had used them to speak with beings who dwelled in the shadows between worlds, entities that watched over the delicate balance of the waking realm and the dreamscape. But this connection came at a cost. The tome spoke of rituals that demanded a heavy toll, sacrifices that tested the limits of human endurance. The mystics had given everything to maintain the harmony, pouring their very essence into the runes to keep the balance intact. And yet, their devotion had not been enough. Over time, the weight of their sacrifices grew too great, and their order faded into obscurity, their secrets buried with them. Elara's hands trembled as she read the last passages. The whispers she had been hearing, those faint, haunting voices that lingered at the edge of her thoughts, were not figments of her imagination. They were the spirits of the mystics themselves, calling out to her from beyond the veil. They had chosen her, urging her to take up their mantle and restore what had been lost. The realization hit her like a wave, a flood of both awe and dread. To step into their role meant accepting a burden that had crushed those who came before her. Thaler, ever the steadying presence, placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, his voice low but firm. Yet Alara knew the decision was hers alone to make. The spirits had not chosen Thaler, they had chosen her. Their voices were insistent, their plea clear. The balance was fraying, and only she could mend it. The weight of their trust was terrifying, but deep within her, something stirred, a resolve she hadn't known she possessed. She could not turn away, not when the fate of 2 realms rested in her hands. The runes were no longer just symbols of power. They were a call to action, a duty she could not ignore. As she closed the tome, the whispers grew louder, not in fear or desperation, but in encouragement. They were ready to guide her, and she knew, with a quiet certainty, that she was ready to listen. Alara stood in the center of the ancient grove, the air thick with the scent of moss and the faint hum of unseen energies. Around her, the runes etched into the stones glowed faintly, their light pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She had prepared for this moment, her hands steady, her mind focused, though her heart raced with both fear and anticipation. This was no ordinary ritual. Tonight, she would not merely call upon the spirits. She would commune with them, seeking their wisdom and power directly. The weight of her village's survival rested on her shoulders, and she knew there was no turning back. As she began the incantation, the grove seemed to come alive. The whispers of the wind grew louder, carrying with them fragments of a melody that felt both ancient and timeless. The shadows around her shifted, and from the darkness emerged ethereal figures, their forms shimmering like mist caught in moonlight. Their voices were a haunting blend of whispers and song, each note resonating deep within her soul. Alara felt their gaze upon her, piercing and knowing, as if they could see every secret she had ever kept. "We hear your plea, child," the spirits intoned, their voices echoing as one. "We sense the burden you carry, the desperation that has brought you to us. We can grant you the power you seek, but such gifts are not freely given. You must offer something in return, a piece of yourself, a memory, a fragment of your soul. Only then can the bond between us be forged." Elara's breath caught in her throat. The weight of their words settled over her like a heavy cloak. To give up a part of herself, a memory, a piece of her soul, was no small thing. She thought of her childhood, of the laughter and warmth that had shaped her. What would she lose? A cherished moment with her parents, the first time she held her baby sister. Or perhaps something deeper, a part of her essence that defined who she was. The uncertainty gnawed at her, but so did the reality of her village's plight. Without the spirit's aid, all that she held dear would be lost. She closed her eyes, her mind racing. The spirits waited, their presence a quiet, patient force. Alara knew she had no other choice. Her village needed her, and if this was the price, she would pay it. "I accept," she said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions within her. I will give what is needed. The spirit's response was immediate. Their ethereal forms swirled around her, their energy pouring into her like a river of light. She felt it coursing through her veins, filling her with a power both exhilarating and overwhelming. The runes around her flared brighter, their symbols twisting and rearranging themselves as if alive. Alara reached out, her fingers trembling, and the runes responded to her touch, glowing with a radiance that seemed to defy the very darkness of the night. She could feel the connection now, a bridge between her and the ancient magic of the spirits. It was as if the runes themselves were whispering to her, revealing secrets she had never dared to imagine. Yet, even as the power surged within her, she felt the absence too, a hollow space where something precious had once been. The memory, whatever it was gone, leaving only the faintest echo of its existence. Alara clenched her fists, steeling herself against the loss. There was no time to grieve. The spirits had given her what she needed, and now it was up to her to use it wisely. The fate of her village, and perhaps even the world beyond, rested in her hands. As Alara's powers began to manifest, a sense of awe and unease settled over her. The runes she had studied for so long now pulsed with a life of their own, their ancient symbols glowing faintly in her hands. But with every surge of energy she channeled, something stirred deep within the earth, a presence long forgotten, a force sealed away by the mystics of old. Unbeknownst to her, the act of awakening the runes had also fractured the ancient wards that bound this entity, a being of pure shadow, to its eternal slumber. At first, the signs were subtle, a chill in the air where none should have been, whispers carried on the wind, words no one could quite make out. Then came the dreams. Villagers who once slept peacefully now tossed and turned, their nights plagued by visions of darkness, creeping into their homes, their minds. Fear began to take root, spreading like a contagion. Children woke screaming, their parents unable to comfort them. The once vibrant marketplace grew quiet as people avoided each other's eyes, afraid to speak of what they had seen in their sleep. Alara noticed the change almost immediately. The runes she carried seemed heavier now, their light dimmed by an unseen weight. She could feel the shadow's presence, like a cold breath on the back of her neck. It was only when she overheard the whispers of the villagers, their hushed conversations about nightmares and a growing dread, that she realized the truth. Her actions had awakened something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The shadow was not just a presence, it was alive, feeding on the fear it created, growing stronger with every passing night. Desperation drove her to seek out Thaler, the village's wise elder, and the one who had first introduced her to the mysteries of the runes. But even he, with his decades of knowledge and experience, seemed shaken. "This is no ordinary darkness," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "The ancient mystics sealed this entity away for a reason. It is a force that thrives on fear, and the more it consumes, the more powerful it becomes." Alara's heart sank as Thaler admitted that he had no clear solution. The text spoke of the shadow's imprisonment, but they offered no guidance on how to defeat it once awakened. Together, they pored over the ancient scrolls, searching for any clue, any forgotten ritual that might help them. But the answers remained elusive, hidden behind layers of cryptic symbols and warnings. As the nights grew darker and the shadow's influence spread, Alara knew she couldn't wait for answers to reveal themselves. She had to act, but the question remained. How could she fight something that fed on the very fear it created? The weight of responsibility pressed down on her, but deep within, a spark of determination flickered. She had awakened this threat, and she would find a way to stop it no matter the cost. Elara and Thaler stood at the edge of the dream realm, their breaths steady, but their hearts heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. The air around them shimmered faintly, a sign of the boundary between worlds thinning. They exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. This was the moment they had prepared for. Armed with the ancient knowledge of the runes, and bolstered by the strength of the spirits who had guided them, they stepped forward, their resolve unshakable. The dream realm was a place where reality bent and twisted, and they knew the entity they sought would be at its most powerful here. As they ventured deeper, the landscape shifted violently, as if the realm itself were alive and reacting to their presence. The ground beneath their feet cracked and reformed into jagged peaks, while the sky above churned with dark, ominous clouds. From the shadows, the entity emerged, its form a swirling mass of darkness and malice. It wasn't just a creature, it was the embodiment of fear itself, feeding on the nightmares it conjured. Tendrils of shadow lashed out, and the air filled with the cries of haunting visions, each one designed to break their spirit. Elara raised her hands, her fingers glowing with the soft light of the runes she had mastered. She wove barriers of light, shielding herself and Thaler from the onslaught. But the entity was relentless, its attacks growing fiercer with each passing moment. The runes pulsed in response, their energy straining against the darkness. Thaler, ever the strategist, moved swiftly, his movements calculated and precise. He knew they couldn't outlast the entity in a battle of endurance. It fed on their fear, their doubt. Something had to give. In a moment of clarity, Thaler made his choice. With a determined look, he stepped forward, drawing the entity's attention. "Alara," he called, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "This is it. Finish it." Before she could protest, he channeled his own energy into a strike that weakened the entity, his sacrifice creating a fleeting opening. The shadows recoiled, and for the first time, the entity seemed vulnerable. Alara's heart ached, but there was no time to grieve. She felt the energy of the runes surge within her, a brilliant light that burned away the darkness. With a final, desperate effort, she focused all her power into one decisive strike. The runes blazed like stars, their ancient symbols converging into a single, radiant beam. The entity let out a deafening roar as it was consumed by the light, its form dissolving into nothingness. The dream realm quaked, and then, all at once, it fell silent. The shadows retreated, and the air grew still. Alara stood alone, the weight of what had just happened settling over her. The entity was gone, banished back to the void from which it came. But the cost had been high. She closed her eyes, feeling the echoes of Thaler's sacrifice, mingling with the lingering warmth of the runes. The battle was over, but the journey was far from finished. Elara stirred awake, her body heavy with exhaustion, but her spirit oddly at peace. The chamber around her was silent now, the once deafening whispers of the runes completely stilled. The oppressive hum that had filled the air was gone, replaced by an almost eerie quiet. She sat up slowly, her hand instinctively reaching for the space beside her, where Thaler had stood only moments. or was it hours before? A deep ache settled in her chest as the memory of his sacrifice came rushing back. He had given everything to ensure the rune's power was contained, to protect the village, to protect her. The weight of his absence was a wound that would take far longer to heal than any physical injury. Outside the chamber, the village was beginning to stir. The shadows that had loomed over every home, every heart, were receding like a nightmare fading at dawn. The villagers, once haunted by restless nights and dark dreams, now moved with a lightness Alara hadn't seen in months. Children laughed in the streets, their voices carrying through the crisp morning air, and the elders sat outside their homes, basking in the sunlight as if they had forgotten what warmth felt like. It was a return to normalcy, a fragile peace that felt almost too good to be true. Yet for Alara, the victory was bittersweet. She walked through the village, her footsteps slow and deliberate, her mind heavy with the cost of what they had achieved. The villagers greeted her with smiles and gratitude, calling her their hero, their savior, but their praise felt hollow in the face of what she had lost. Thaler's absence was a constant reminder of the price paid for this peace, and the weight of her choices pressed down on her like the stones of the chamber she had just left. She had wielded the runes, communed with the spirits, and faced forces she barely understood, and in doing so, she had changed something fundamental within herself. The runes were silent now, but she could still feel their presence, a faint echo in the back of her mind. They had marked her, shaped her, and she knew they would continue to do so. The spirits that had guided her, challenged her, and tested her resolve had left an indelible imprint on her soul. She was no longer just Elara, the girl from the village. She was something more and something less. Her connection to the runes and the spirits had altered her path forever, and she couldn't help but wonder what that meant for her future. As the days passed, the village began to rebuild, its people finding joy in the small, everyday moments that had been stolen from them. But Alara often found herself wandering to the edge of the forest, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. She knew her journey wasn't over. The runes had chosen her, and though their whispers had ceased, their call remained. Somewhere out there, beyond the safety of the village, lay answers to questions she hadn't even begun to ask. And though the thought filled her with both fear and anticipation, she knew one thing for certain: her story was far from finished. As the echoes of the ancient chamber faded into silence, Alara stood at its threshold, her hand resting on the cold stone archway. The weight of her decision settled upon her like the soft embrace of twilight, gentle yet unshakable. She had made her choice. No longer just a seeker of knowledge, she now bore the mantle of the guardian, a protector of the runes and the delicate balance they upheld. The air around her seemed to hum with approval, as though the chamber itself acknowledged her vow. With a steady hand, she traced the sacred symbols etched into the stone, sealing the entrance with a spell older than time. The runes glowed faintly, their light flickering like distant stars, before the chamber was sealed, hidden from the world once more. The whispers of the spirits, once so faint and elusive, now surrounded her like a warm breeze, their voices carrying a sense of gratitude and trust. Alara closed her eyes, feeling their presence intertwine with her own. It was as if the ancient guardians of the runes had chosen her, not just as a protector, but as a part of their eternal legacy. A quiet peace settled within her, a calm she had never known before. For the first time, her path felt clear, her purpose unmistakable. She was no longer searching for meaning. She had found it, etched in the very stones she now vowed to guard. Yet, even as she stepped away from the chamber, the whispers of the runes stayed with her, a gentle undercurrent in her thoughts. They were no longer just symbols of power or mystery. They were a part of her, a living reminder of the night that had forever changed her life. Alara returned to her studies with a renewed focus. Her understanding of the runes deepened by the secrets she had uncovered. Each symbol she studied now carried a weight she could feel in her bones, a connection to something greater than herself. The mysteries of the ancient runes were no longer distant or abstract. They were alive, pulsing with the same energy that now flowed through her. As she worked, the whispers guided her, their voices a quiet but constant presence. They spoke not in words, but in feelings, flickers of intuition, flashes of insight. It was as though the runes themselves were teaching her, sharing their wisdom in a language only she could understand. Alara embraced this new connection, her studies becoming not just an academic pursuit, but a journey of discovery, a dialogue with the ancient forces she had sworn to protect. The balance of the runes was no longer just a concept. It was a responsibility, a sacred trust she carried with every breath. And as the days turned to nights, and the whispers grew fainter, but no less present, Alara knew she had found her place in the tapestry of the ancient world. As whispers of Alara's newfound wisdom spread through the village, curious faces began to gather at the edge of the forest, drawn by tales of the ancient runes and their mysterious power. At first, they came cautiously, their footsteps hesitant, their voices low, but Alara's calm presence and the gentle glow of the rune stones soon put them at ease. She stood before them, not as a distant guardian of old secrets, but as a teacher, a bridge between the past and the present. With each lesson, she unraveled the intricate threads of the runes' meaning, showing how their symbols held not just magic, but stories, warnings, and truths long forgotten. The villagers, once wary of the forest and its whispers, began to see the runes in a new light. Under Alara's guidance, they learned to trace the symbols in the earth, to chant the ancient words, and to feel the faint hum of energy that connected them to something greater. They discovered that the runes were not just tools of power, but reminders of responsibility, a delicate balance that must never be tipped too far. Alara's voice carried both hope and caution as she spoke of the dream realm, a place of infinite possibility, but also hidden peril. She warned them of the shadows that lurked there, waiting for an unguarded moment to slip into the waking world. In time, a new order began to take shape, born from Alara's teachings and the villagers' growing understanding. They call themselves the Keepers of the Runes, a small but steadfast group dedicated to safeguarding the knowledge of the ancients. Together, they work to restore the old rituals, carving runes into stone and wood, weaving their magic into the fabric of daily life. The village, once fractured by fear, began to heal, united by a shared purpose. Alara found herself at the heart of this transformation, her quiet strength inspiring others to step forward and embrace their roles as protectors of the balance. Yet, even as the village thrived, Alara knew that her work was far from finished. The shadows that lingered at the edges of her world were a constant reminder of the fragility of the balance she had sworn to uphold. She often found herself standing at the forest's edge, gazing into the twilight, her thoughts drifting to the dream realm. There, in the space between worlds, she sensed a presence, something ancient and watchful, waiting for its moment. But for now, she took comfort in the knowledge that she was not alone. The keepers stood with her, their bond growing stronger with each passing day, and the village, once so fearful, now looked to her not just as a guide, but as a beacon of hope in a world where light and shadow danced in eternal balance. The whispers of the night grew softer with time, yet they never truly faded. Alara, now a figure of legend, carried the weight of her deeds with quiet grace. The runes, ever present, hummed gently in the background of her life, a soothing reminder of the bond she had forged with their ancient power. Their soft glow illuminated her path, both literally and metaphorically, as she continued to navigate the world she had sworn to protect. Often, she found herself drawn back to the chamber where it all began. The air there was thick with memories, each step echoing with the trials and triumphs of her journey. The runes seemed to recognize her presence, their whispers growing clearer, almost as if they were recounting her story back to her. She would sit in silence, letting their soft murmurs wash over her, reflecting on how far she had come. The night, once a harbinger of fear and uncertainty, had transformed into a serene companion. It no longer held the same dread it once did. Instead, it served as a quiet reminder of the peace she had fought so hard to preserve. Elara knew her story was far from finished. The runes had shown her glimpses of what lay ahead, challenges, yes, but also opportunities to grow, to protect, and to inspire. She felt no fear, only a steady resolve. The whispers of the night and the hum of the runes were not just echoes of the past. They were guides, pointing her toward a future she was ready to embrace. For those who listened closely, the night still carried its secrets, but now they were whispered with a sense of hope. Alara's journey had become a beacon, a testament to the power of courage and the enduring light that could be found even in the darkest of times. And as the stars shimmered above, the runes glowed brighter, as if in agreement, ready to stand by her side for whatever lay ahead. As Alara's connection to the runes grows stronger, the world around her seems to shift and shimmer, as if the very fabric of time is bending to her will. She begins to experience visions, glimpses of a future where darkness and light clash in an endless dance. In one moment, she sees towering storms of chaos, cities in ruins, and hearts weighed down by despair. In the next, she witnesses the dawn breaking over a tranquil horizon, where laughter fills the air and hope blooms like flowers after a long winter. These visions are not random. They are pieces of a greater puzzle, showing her the delicate balance she is meant to protect. The spirits of the runes are always near, their whispers soft but insistent, like the rustling of leaves in a quiet forest. They guide her, not with commands, but with gentle nudges, helping her understand her role as the eternal guardian. It's a responsibility that stretches beyond her lifetime, a cycle that has no beginning and no end. Alara begins to see herself as a thread in an infinite tapestry, woven into the very essence of the rune's power. Her purpose is not just to guard the runes, but to ensure that the forces of light and darkness remain in harmony, forever intertwined yet never overpowering one another. With this realization comes a profound sense of peace. The mysteries of the ancient runes, once a source of fear and uncertainty, now feel like an old friend. They are not meant to frighten her, but to remind her of the strength she carries within. The night, with its shadows and secrets, is no longer something to fear, but a sanctuary where balance is nurtured and preserved. Alara embraces her destiny fully, knowing that every choice she makes ripples through time, shaping the future in ways she may never fully comprehend. And so, under the watchful gaze of the spirits and the ancient runes, Alara steps forward, her heart steady and her resolve unshakable. She is part of something far greater than herself, a guardian of the eternal balance, a keeper of the peace that the night brings. The whispers of the runes grow louder, not in warning but in affirmation, as if to say, "You are where you are meant to be." And in that moment, Alara knows that her journey is just beginning, a journey that will echo through the ages, a testament to the power of the night and the harmony it holds. Beneath the vast expanse of shimmering stars, Alara sits quietly, her breath steady, her heart calm. The whispers of the ancient runes drift through the air like a soft melody, intertwining with the gentle rustle of leaves in the night breeze. It's a moment of stillness, a rare pause in the relentless rhythm of her journey. Her gaze lingers on the horizon, where the sky meets the earth, and her mind begins to wander through the labyrinth of memories she's gathered along the way. She thinks back to the very beginning, the day she first stumbled upon the hidden chamber, its walls etched with symbols that seem to pulse with an otherworldly energy. It feels like a lifetime ago, yet the memory remains vivid, as if it were only yesterday. She remembers the thrill of discovery, the weight of responsibility that settled on her shoulders the moment she realized the power she had uncovered. The runes were not just ancient markings, they were a key, a bridge between worlds, and she had been chosen to protect them. Her journey was far from easy. There were battles fought not just with swords and shields, but with doubt and fear. She faced adversaries who sought to wield the runes for their own gain, and moments when the shadows threatened to consume her. Yet through it all, she found strength she didn't know she had, strength drawn from the very runes she protected. They guided her, whispered to her in moments of uncertainty, and reminded her of the light that always exists, even in the darkest of times. Now, as she sits beneath the night sky, Alara feels a profound sense of fulfillment. The sacrifices she made, the risks she took, they were all worth it. The runes are safe, their mysteries preserved, and she has played her part in ensuring their legacy endures. The shadows, she knows, will never fully disappear. They are a part of life, a reminder of the balance that must be maintained. But so is the light, and it is that light she chooses to carry forward. The ancient runes are no longer just symbols carved into stone. They are a part of her, woven into the fabric of her being. They have shaped her journey, her choices, and her identity. And as the stars twinkle above, Alara feels a deep, unshakable peace. She has walked a path few could endure, and in doing so, she has found not just answers, but herself. The night is quiet, the air is still, and in this moment, everything feels as it should be. The mysteries of the ancient runes will endure, and so will she. As the years turned into decades, and the decades into centuries, Alara's story began to weave itself into the very fabric of the village's history. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a legend, a living memory carried in the hearts of those who called this place home. Parents whispered her name to their children under the soft glow of the moonlight, and elders recounted her deeds around crackling fires. their voices steady and reverent. Alara's courage became a beacon, her sacrifice a testament to the strength of the human spirit, and the night, once feared, was now embraced as a source of comfort and mystery. The runes, those ancient symbols of power and wisdom, remained hidden, their resting place known only to a select few. These guardians, chosen for their deep understanding and respect for the rune's purpose, kept their secrets safe, ensuring that the knowledge would never fall into hands that might misuse it. The runes were not mere artifacts to be studied or displayed. They were a reminder of the delicate balance between light and shadow, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to endure, not to be solved. In the village, life flourished in ways that seemed almost magical. The people lived in harmony with the night, their dreams no longer haunted by darkness, but filled with peace and wonder. The once feared whispers of the wind through the trees now carried a soothing hum, a gentle reminder of the rune's presence. Children played under the stars, their laughter echoing through the streets, while elders sat on porches, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns. The night was no longer an enemy, it was a companion, a quiet force that brought solace and connection. Alara's legacy, like the runes themselves, became timeless. Her story was not just about one person's bravery, but about the enduring power of hope. It reminded everyone that even in the darkest of times, even when the path ahead seemed impossible to navigate, there was always a light, however faint, to guide the way. That light might come from within, from the strength of one's own spirit, or from the collective wisdom of those who came before. And sometimes it came from the quiet whispers of the night, carrying with them the ancient secrets of the runes. Today, as the village thrives and the night remains a source of comfort, the whispers of the runes continue to echo. They are a gentle, constant presence, a reminder that the mysteries of the ancient world are not meant to be unraveled, but to be respected and cherished. For those who listen closely, the hum of the runes offers not just comfort, but a connection to something greater, something timeless. And so, the story of Alara and the ancient runes lives on, a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the enduring power of the night, ensuring that its mysteries will never be forgotten.